a lot of mayonnaise, homie. Okay, that's enough mayonnaise, Issa.
Okay. Come here.
I'm not going anyway. You're going to have cholesterol problems. No more mayonnaise. No, it's enough. Okay, no more. That was my teenage son, Issa, or Slim Shady, as I affectionately call him. And by the end of this podcast, you'll know exactly why I chose that name. But here he is, big teenage energy, making a sandwich and making a point. The point was, Mom, back off. I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. Welcome to Issa's Barn, Stories of Independence by Design. Hey y'all, I'm Jazz, and this is the story of how my autistic son taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is get out the way. But it did take a decade, 2 moves, an unplanned hospital visit, and eventually this Philly girl had to go full country grammar. And I picked up, brought a farm, and renovated a barn. It took all of that to figure it out. Slim Shady was a teenager when I took that first video. I caught myself documenting his life skills training. At least that's what I told myself. Really? I was hovering, micromanaging, controlling at its finest. Let me show you what I mean. No, it's enough. You see that little extra squeeze, that little extra mayo he put on at the end? That wasn't about mayo or condiments. That was my teenage son asserting the only autonomy he could in that moment. But I didn't see it that way then. What I saw was defiance, non-compliance, or air quote, a behavior. What I should have seen was a young man saying, hey, I know how I like my sandwich, and it's not your job to decide for me. But this is still my house. So the thing is, I came from a background where independence was everything. I was raised with a mentality of figure it out and do for self. In fact, those were 2 core values that was ingrained in me since a little girl. I actually built my first house from the ground up in the city of Philadelphia, where I was born and raised, after buying a 1/4-acre lot in the city. Now, this was unheard of at that time. But I wanted a home that I couldn't afford, so I decided to figure it out. I became my own general contractor, learned about zoning, permits, reading blueprints, and hiring subs. I even learned about trade unions at that time, and the only thing I had knew about them prior to that was what I saw when watching like mafioso type movies. But I worked in healthcare tech for over a decade. Everything from claims administration, software development, data analytics. I was a senior level consultant, and people hired me because I knew how to solve complex problems. So when my son was diagnosed with autism, I went straight in. I thought, okay, this is just another problem to solve. I'll teach him. I'll train him. I'll prepare him for independence. What I didn't understand yet was that my way of doing things wasn't necessarily his way. And my constant instruction was actually preventing the very independence that I was trying to build. Which incident, I kind of brushed it off for a few years. He's a teenager. What do you expect? Teenage rebellion, right? But then they kept coming. Let me tell you about the time about the cookies. Issa is like Cookie Monster. He loves cookies and he can bake them himself. He always has. There's something about, I guess, following the recipe in his own way where he just takes pride in, like, I got this. So he's never really needed help with baking cookies. Now, he wasn't baking cookies from scratch. So I guess I didn't give him too much credit for just kind of taking the cookies out of the wrapper, those ready to bake cookies that you just place on a tray. But nonetheless, he baked his own cookies. One day, he's baking chocolate chip cookies. They smell good. I'm watching him. I work from home, so my office is right next to the kitchen. And I'm really thinking about the sugar and the nutrition, all the parent mom type things. And I was always vigilant with his diet because diet plays such a critical role for all of us, but especially for people with autism and certain sensory processing needs. So the cookies are done. Issa proceeds to eat a few. And then I finally say, hey, Issa, don't eat any more cookies. Leave some for your sister. And this time, unlike with the sandwich, where he just silently defies me and continues to slather mayonnaise on his bread, Issa walks over to me,
Issa,
grabs me by my arm,
eat the whole thing
and gently directs me back to my home office. Not only did he direct me back to my home office, he ever so politely pulled out my office chair. And you know how the monitor goes blank when there is a moment of inactivity, and all you have to do is hit one key and the monitor comes back to life? Well, that's what Issa did. As he physically places me back into my seat, he tapped the keyboard so that my monitor could come back to life. He places his hand over top of my hand and then places my hand over top of my mouse. And then he walks back into the kitchen. But before he does so, he actually closes my office door. No words were exchanged. But a lot was communicated to me that day. Issa was telling me that, hey, maybe you didn't notice, but I'm bigger than you. Maybe you didn't notice. I'm probably stronger than you. And yeah, he was. He was. And maybe you didn't notice. I'm going to do what I want. And right now, I'm going to eat all of these cookies. I chose my battle that day. I had some silent reflection, although the inner mom in me, the inner black mom in me was saying, ain't no way a child living under my roof going to tell me what he ain't and what he ain't going to do. However, I had to have one of those moments where, let's be real, Jazz, you got a problem if you think that. Here again, I have to figure something out. Because Issa the boy is now Issa the teenager. And one day, Issa the teenager is going to become Issa the man. The high school years, the message was clear. Slim Shady muscles grew by leaps and bounds. And I tried to pretty much give him his space. And I would say 2019, 2020, when Issa was, grown man, I decided to renovated the entire basement into a full apartment for him. 1 bedroom, full bath, full kitchen, his own entrance. I thought perfect. He has his own place, but I'm right upstairs if he needs me. Except I was always right upstairs. And Issa started coming up more and more, trying to control the temperature in my part of the house, the TV, what I was doing, where I was going. It escalated to physical combativeness when things didn't go his way. I realized it wasn't working when one day 2 of my very best friends from high school came to visit me from out of town. They were staying in my guest room on the first floor. Issa literally came upstairs, packed all of their things while we're in the kitchen, packed their luggage, put the luggage in the hallway, and proceeded to lay across my guest room bed in his underwear. In his drawers, y'all, in his drawers. I realized this isn't working. He can't practice independence when I'm 20 feet above him, and I can't have freedom when he's 20 feet below me. But I really still couldn't stop myself. We continued to live together, and one time he came upstairs to use my kitchen once again to bake cookies, and I just can't help myself. Here I go again in teaching mode.
Hold the pan. Hold it down while you cut. Okay.
Now, eventually, he grabs the pan, he walks out, go downstairs to his apartment. It was pretty much finished the cookie by himself.
Right.
It was
Right. Okay,
hilarious
I'm
at the
gonna
time.
interfere with
I
your
remember even
privacy.
posting it to Facebook, like, look at this guy. I think that's when I started calling him Slim Shady. But it was funny, but deep down, I'll share with you guys, it really hit me, like really hit me. I realized that this is a problem. More importantly, I'm the problem. Not his autism, not his abilities, not his need for support. Me, the mother, the loving, caring mother, always hovering, my inability to just let go, my need to control the outcome. I mean, it's natural, it's what we do. But I had to ask myself a hard question. What happens if I die tomorrow? Because every soul shall taste death, and none of us know when our last day is. If I get sick, and right on cue, this is live being recorded, and that's my alarm going off for prayer. But if I get sick, I can't just be there. Would Issa even know how to function without me in the same building? Of course, I feel like he would know how to function, but maybe he should have some practice being truly independent. And the thought of that really terrified me because I did not have a plan for what would happen if I was no longer here. The following year, after he threw my girlfriends out, I decided that I needed to make a decision. And I made one of the hardest decisions up until that point in my life. I rented a house and moved Issa into it. Not an apartment, a whole house, his own space. It was about 15 minutes from where I lived. His older brother agreed to live there too. He'd help with ADLs or activities of daily living in exchange for discounted rent. Affordable housing, win-win in this crazy rental market. And it meant that Issa had support and support by a family member. So best of both worlds. I installed cameras because by then I learned something important. Distance really did help. But when I wasn't physically there, Issa could focus, he could think, he can do things without my voice in his ear. And I watched him through those cameras. And I actually saw a completely different person. This is Issa in his rented house, cooking alone. Watch how smoothly he moves. He's confident. He knows what he's doing. As long as he got ketchup, he's going to be okay. No one is telling him what to do. No one is hovering. No one is counting calories or nutrition facts. And no one's correcting him. And he's good. And this is him doing grocery shopping online by himself. He knows what he needs. He adds it to his cart. Boom, bam. Schedules the delivery. He's good. That's when I started kind of feeling uncomfortable. As you can see, he's in his drawers. Now, he prefers to be naked. A lot of people with autism or sensory processing issues do. Clothes can be overwhelming sensory-wise. They can be actually painful to some people. And quite frankly, he has every right to be comfortable in his own home. We agreed years ago, you can go ahead in your birthday suit as long as you stay within your private space. So I would always say modesty, Issa, modesty. And when you come out and there are others around, you have to have on clothes. Well, he's on code. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But I'm his mom, and watching him through cameras in his private space, in his drawers, living his private life, it started to feel wrong, a little invasive, a little weird, you know. But I was doing it for safety because the care agencies that should be finding me staffing couldn't reliably staff. My son was a help, but he had his own life and his own job as well. And Issa had been on the Innovations Waiver wait list, which is one of the home and community-based waiver services that is awarded to us in the state of North Carolina. He's been on that wait list since 2018 with no services in sight. But bottom line, the camera was still surveillance, and I knew there had to be a better way. I lived in his house for about 2 years. It went well in some aspects, and in some aspects it did not go well. By then, I had already started playing with different remote devices and smart devices. I was about to say sensory processing devices, but that's not a thing. But I was working with a lot of different smart devices and smart sensors and really just expanding my knowledge on how I could help support him through the use of technology. Cameras was very much a part of that whole system. But one day in 2022, my worst fear happened. Issa went outside naked. Nothing new for us. He was just going to the trash can. When I first rented the house, I actually talked to the neighbors to the right and to the left. I kind of explained to them, introduce Issa, introduce myself, explain to them the whole sort of rundown that we were trying to, foster this sense of independent living for my son who had autism. He's nonverbal or selectively verbal. His brother would be staying there with him, and I was 15 minutes away. So I felt pretty comfortable that Issa was okay. But that's not what happened. When Issa went outside naked, a neighbor called 911. An ambulance came. They drugged him and took him to the hospital. I wasn't there to see it, thank God. But just imagine, I receive a phone call from my son, panicked as he gets home from his job, to tell me that Issa wasn't there. We found out that from another neighbor that they had picked Issa up and took him to the hospital. When I got the call, my heart just dropped. The world stopped for me. I get emotional just thinking about it. The healthcare system is not really set up and designed to really accommodate all of the needs of individuals with autism. Again, I get emotional thinking about that story because imagine you getting that phone call. And not just the phone call that he was taken by ambulance. He's nonverbal, and it took us hours finding which hospital he was taken to. But bottom line, what if I had never known? What if something worse happened? But also, the cameras didn't prevent it. They only let me know about it after the fact. That's when I knew with absolute certainty that I needed to build something different. Not better cameras, not more surveillance, but a system that could alert me to patterns of behavior, potential problems, safety concerns, without watching his every move and without invading his privacy. A system that would really respect his dignity, but while giving me peace of mind to know that he's safe. That's when Remote Nano Insights, the company I had been kind of doing on the side as a little side hustle, went from idea to a mission. And that's when I started seriously looking for the answer. After the hospital incident, I moved Issa back into the home with me. But I knew that wouldn't last. I knew I had to come up with another solution. My husband and I were searching high and low all across the state of North Carolina. That's an exaggeration, not all across the state, because I was not prepared to move too far from the triangle. But we literally searched in almost every county: Orange County, Durham County, Wake County, Johnson County, the list goes on. And finally, in 2023, I found Pebblebrook Farm. In Wake Forest, on the border of Wake and Granville County, it was enough land to do what I had envisioned that I wanted to do 10 years ago, with an old horse barn sitting right in the middle of the property. I remember walking that property and I could see it. Not the barn as it was, all broken down and unused, dirt floor and everything, but I could see my vision. I saw what it could be. I envisioned a duplex, one side for Issa, one side for a neurotypical peer who could offer support in exchange for affordable rent, similar to the situation I had with my son. A place where Issa could live independently with dignity and privacy and freedom, but most importantly, wired with technology I had been designing. motion sensors instead of cameras, door sensors, environmental monitoring, audio prompts when needed, but only when needed. Again, no cameras, no surveillance, just smart, respectful technology that would offer support. I even went back to school to become an assistive technology certified provider. I started the renovation and it took me time. I ran into problems and there were setbacks. I mean, zoning battles. Finally got over the HOA drama, but I still had contractor issues. But eventually we built it, Issa's barn. And in 2024, I was able to move Slim Shady back in. Now, I don't have video of him cooking there because guess what? There are no cameras. But I know he's okay. The sensors tell me he's moving through his morning routine. When he needs a prompt to do that, I send a prompt. The door alerts tell me if he leaves at any unusual time or if he leaves with his clothes off because there is a camera outside the door. But more importantly, I was able to custom design a routine that when he opens the door, it gives him a reminder and says, remember to put clothes on before leaving. So the environmental monitors also help me know if like something's wrong within the environment, and it kind of tracks his sensory needs and provides me that type of input. If the stove is on and he's not in a room, it monitors that and automatically shuts it off as well. Whenever he needs a reminder, I can just send audio prompts through the system. I don't have to hover. I'm not in his space. I'm not in his face. I'm just supporting him from afar. And it has worked beautifully so far. But you know what the most beautiful thing is? I can actually show you a video of him making a sandwich with the perfect amount of mayo, or baking cookies and eating exactly as many as he wants, or just living his life the way he chooses in his own space, according to his own rules. But that's exactly the point. His independence doesn't exist for me to document. It exists for him to live. So that's why we built the barn. Not just because Issa needed a place to live, but because he deserved the chance to become who he's capable of being, without cameras, without constant supervision, and without his mom hovering over every sandwich. From that defiant teenager adding extra mayo when I told him not to the young man who pushed me away from his cookies, to the grown adult who grabbed the pan and walked out to let me know that he was going to do things on his term. Issa was always showing me what he needed. It just took me a while to finally listen. In the next episode, I would like to show you exactly how the technology works, what sensors we use, and how privacy-first monitoring actually functions, and how you might be able to use this approach with your own family. But today was about the journey, the mistakes, the revelations, and that hospital call that changed everything. If you're a parent or a caregiver struggling with these same questions, how to keep someone safe while respecting their dignity, how to let go while still being there, I see you. I've been you. And I want you to know that there is another way. Don't forget to visit remotenanoinsights.com to learn more about the technology. You can click Get Started here and explore how camera-free monitoring might work for your family. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow R&I Designs on social media. Join me next week when we'll get into the actual tech, because independence by design is not just possible, it's what our loved ones deserve.